بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, in today's talk, we'll talk about a few ayat from Surah Al-Anbiya. Surah Al-Anbiya is the surah that was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Meccan era, and this is the time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba were going through very difficult times. And this surah, as you can probably tell by the name Al-Anbiya, which means the prophets, talks about many different prophets' stories in a very quick way. It talks about stories of Musa alayhi salam, Harun alayhi salam, but not in detail. And some of the stories of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Lut alayhi salam, Ishaq, Yaqub, Nuh, Dawood, Sulaiman, Ayub alayhi salam, Ayub, Ismail, Idris, Dhul Kifl, Dhul Nun, Zakaria, Isa alayhi salam, and of course Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's peace and blessing be on all the prophets. And the idea, when we read those stories, we see that it is talking about a few things, especially that all these prophets had to go through opposition from the people who did not want the La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah or La ilaha illallah in general to be raised and Allah to be worshipped alone. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to them, all of them, as part of the same ummah who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatu wahida wa ana rabbukum fa'budun. This is the ayah number 92 of the Surah Al-Anbiya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about that referring to that this ummah is the one ummah and I am your Rabb, so worship me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the people in general. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions, and this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going through before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about all these stories of the prophets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَقَدْ اسْتَهْزِيَ بِرُسُلٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ فَحَاقَ بِالَّذِينَ سَخِرُوا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. Indeed, many messengers were mocked before you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the scoffers were surrounded by that where they used to mock. So this phenomena of mocking or ridiculing or harming the messengers and anybody who carries the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not something of a new phenomena, even when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going through. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in a sense comforting Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that it's not that you are not carrying the right message, you are not the one who's carrying the haqq. It is more of the other side, the opposition, the one who is working against the haqq, against the truth, against Allah Azza wa Jal. This is them who are the one who are making the mistake. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, after mentioning the stories of different prophets or just hinting about different prophets in this surah, which is about 17 different prophets were mentioned, 15 of them by name. And Allah Azza wa Jal says then, وَلَقَدْ كَتَبْنَا فِي الزَّبُورِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الذِّكْرِ أَنَّ الْأَرْضَ يَرِثُوهَا عِبَادِيَ الصَّالِحُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah, is reminding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and relating it to the previous books, which is talking about Zabur, which is referred as today as a Psalm, book of Psalm. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and indeed we have written in Zabur, and after the Zabur, so min ba'di dhikri, which is after that, in the Quran as well. So in the Torah, Injil, and Zabur, Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned about this, that my righteous slaves shall inherit the land, i.e. the land of paradise. Now, it is not necessarily only the land of paradise, even on the earth also, but in general, it is referring to that they are the one who are successful. Now, many people, unfortunately, nowadays, they have looked into this ayah and they try to bring out the meaning, which is not the meaning of this verse. They would say that, look, today we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the power and the authority to the people who are not the followers of Allah Azza wa Jalla, who do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are the salihun now. Because why? Because Allah is saying, "And because the righteous slaves shall inherit the land." Hence they say, but the land is referred to, i.e. the land of the paradise, or even on the earth also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the authority to the people who are salihin. Now, does that mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give the power and authority to the people who are not righteous? No, that's not true, because we can see even the stories of the prophets which were mentioned prior to this verse in Surah Al-Anbiya is talking about there were tyrants who were ruling over the prophets as well when they were sent to bring carry the message of the truth to them. Now, does that make them the one who are being tyrant as the salihun because they have authority? No, this is actually opposite to the real essence or the knowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us in this book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Quran and in the previous scriptures as well. So this is a very erroneous, very incorrect kind of understanding to do. It's like thinking of like a reverse engineering here, that because somebody has authority, hence he is a salihun. That's not true. Just because somebody has authority does not make him a salih. Rather, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying that Allah will inherit the land to the righteous ones, and this is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has mentioned in many other places as well, as Allah Subhanahu wa Taala الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن lahum dinahum alladhina irtada lahum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to that. This is a promise by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the people who believe and do the righteous deed, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the authority on the earth, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given it to the previous people as well. Now, when it comes to giving the authority to the salihun, this is Allah's promise. Allah is telling them that they will get. I mean, just because Rasulullah was going through difficult times or opposition from the people who were rejecting the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not mean that they will not receive the authority, or they will not inherit the land. And also at the end of the day, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enter these salihun into the Jannah, the ever-living life as well. Now, on contrary to that, the people who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reject the truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be enter into the hellfire. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about inna fi hadha la balaghin liqawmin ya'bidin. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that verily this Quran, there is a plain message for the people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for the people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and they do not make partners with anybody but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how Rasulullah was sent, what was the purpose of Rasulullah coming to this world. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and we have sent you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not but as a mercy for the alamin. That include the mankind and jinkind and all that exists. Now, this is an interesting part of the ayah referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the mercy, because at the same time, the kuffar of the Makkah, when they were when Rasulullah was carrying the message to them, they were referring to Rasulullah's message and Rasulullah as a hardship that was happening to them. And this was a difficult thing that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought to them. While Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, this message that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is carrying it to you is the mercy, is the rahmah. It's rahmah from Allah azza wa jal, and He Himself is the nothing but the rahmah for the mankind. Now, look at the world today that we are living in, and in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't find much more differences from the perspective of when people put aside the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message from the creator of the heaven and the earth, what kind of a difficult time that they go through, and the people go through different kinds of trials and tribulation. that we find many similarities in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu when Rasulullah was born in Mecca. We find that that time was the days of ignorance, the days of Jahiliyyah, the time of dark age. And it is referred as the time of dark age or dark age time or Jahiliyyah time or ignorance time because the kind of a lifestyle that they were living in. The people were, the strong was oppressing the weak. The women, they did not have any kind of rights. There are some rights that say no rights at all, but they were oppressed in many ways. The girls were buried, so some of the girls were buried alive right after the birth of the girl was happened. They were buried alive, or after some time they were buried alive. And of course there were cases where they did allow the women to live, but that was an oppression that was happening to the girls. The girls were not inheriting, for example, or they were used as commodity. And we can see that the strong ones were waging war against the weak ones, and if the strong would do any kind of a sin or a crime, he could get away. While on the contrary to that, if a weak does a mistake, and in some cases even does not make a mistake, he can go through different kinds of hardships, different kind of punishments, different kind of they can be attributed to different crimes they did not even commit. And if they did something to harm the strong ones, we find that they have to pay a much heavier price than if it was done vice versa. And we can see the similarities today as well. There are so many similarities we can see. Recently, we just saw what was happening in Palestine, in Al-Aqsa. That when the Zionist states soldiers, they enter into the masjid, and they were beating them up brutally, men, women, children, all those people without any kind of a discrimination. They were harming those Muslim worshippers in the masjid in one of the blessed months, and they are very well aware of that how the Muslims look at this month, and they entered into the second house that was built on the earth for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah's house was built on the earth, and it has many significances, which we talked about a couple of days ago. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that. But the one who have power, they are using their power on the weak ones, whether it's Palestine, whether it's Syria, whether it's Yemen. You can go look around any part of the world. Whoever has power, they can they are becoming worse and worse towards the weak ones, and they are taking the rights of them, usurping their rights and the wealth and whatever they have access to. Now, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that time as nothing but mercy for the mankind. He is the mercy because he's the one who was carrying the message of mercy, the message of the most merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the one that can really bring justice to the mankind, and that's why we refer to Rasulullah as a Rahmatul Alameen, that Rasulullah is the mercy to the mankind, because he brought the message that can bring the justice to the people. And when the people live by the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the people really see that what kind of peace, tranquility, and the rahmah and the mercy that comes to the people's life. And we can see in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when this message Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought, and when it got to the point when he was able to implement the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, apply the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the people, lives of the people, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, they both saw that what kind of a peace, harmony that can bring to the whole mankind when the people live by the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give the correct understanding of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and make us those who live by this book and carry this message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the message of the mercy to the rest of the mankind as well. وأقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه غفور رحيم. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.